We're learning about CSS selectors. And here's our image, which shows us a CSS rule set. And that rule set begins with a selector. You could have multiple selectors separated by commas. And we've already learned about the element selector, which you're seeing here with that paragraph, that P, that's selecting all paragraphs on a page. And then we also learned about the class selector and the ID selector. And we've learned about the attribute selector. So we saw that in the last video. Now we're going to learn about pseudo class selectors. And they're called pseudo class selectors because they operate like a class in the sense that just like a class can select multiple elements or multiple tags on an HTML page, so too a pseudo class can select multiple elements or multiple items on an HTML page. Well, what does a pseudo class do, and why should you be excited to learn about them? Pseudo classes are awesome because they provide interactivity to our web pages, and they give a nice visual sort of feedback to the user. So let me show you what I mean. We have here in 0.19 CSS selectors, we have 0.5 pseudo class, and we are going to learn about the link, visited, hover, and active pseudo classes right here in this video. And so to start out, I'm going to open up the index.html of 01, and here we have BMW, Pepsi, and Ford. I'm going to open up the CSS, right-click, split vertically, and you can see the pseudo classes here, link, visited, hover, active, but let's see what they do first. So I'm going to open up this web page, come over and take a look at it. We have BMW, Pepsi, and Ford, and whoa, whoa, check that out. Isn't that cool? BMW, Pepsi, Ford, when I go over those links, they change color. But not only that, when I click it, it goes yellow, it becomes active, and then I go to BMW's webpage, and then I come back, and it's blue because it's been visited. So that's what those first four pseudo classes do. Link, visited, hover, active. Here you can see link, visited, hover, active, and they have to be in that order. So you have to put them in that order. You do not need to put in all of them. You can if you want, but if you put in more than one, you need to put them in this order. Otherwise, it's not going to work as well. And that's just part of the specification. It's not going to work as intended if it's not in this order. So you could remember that they go in this order, link, visited, hover, active, because the acronym for that, I think of it as LVHA. Well, that's not what I wanted to have happen. I want control/LVHA, right? Link, visited, hover, active. Live with laughter. Live ha. LVHA, link, visited, hover, active. So that's the acronym I use to remember, oh yeah, what order they need to be in. Live with laughter. Live ha. LVHA, link, visited, hover, active. So the link, we'll color the link. So green, right? You can see a link, green. And notice the syntax here. Colon link, so that's just a pseudo class syntax, and it's jammed right next to the tag you're applying it to. And some of these only work on the link tag. Hover will work on other elements too, but you could just like apply it and see, hey, does this work? Obviously, right? This needs to be a link. So if you want it to use it, it needs to be a link. All right, so it has to be jammed right up against the anchor element, just like that. And so that's the syntax for it. Colon, and then the name. Colon link. Colon visited, right? And that changes it blue. Colon hover. When you hover over it, it becomes red. Colon active. When you click on it, it becomes yellow. So that's pretty much all there is to say about link, visited, hover, and active. I do have another couple of cool examples to show you with that. So this visited is exactly the same. I just wanted to include it to be thorough. There's no difference between this and the previous file. And I'll put a little note in here. You know, there's no difference aside from the URLs between this and the previous file. 01 link in the files in the 01 link folder. There we go. So I just put this in here so that, hey, it's being thorough. There's link, there's visited. It seemed weird not to include it. Here's hover. Same thing with hover. This is going to be, you know, the same kind of a deal, just the same file. But this one is different. So check this one out. A whole boatload of divs. And when I preview it, Nice. Right, so divs are responding to the hover. And you can see as I hover over a div, it changes it to green. So that's kind of fun. And the way I did that page was simply div, hover, there's the pseudo class, background color green, and I included a new declaration here. It's the cursor property with the value of pointer. And when I go over something, notice the cursor's turned to a finger. So if I go all the way to the bottom, you can see, hey, it's an arrow right now. But when I go over something and hover over it, it turns to, see, there's an arrow. I'm not over everything, but when I hover over everything, it gives me the finger. That didn't sound quite right, but you get what I'm saying. All right, so that's hover, and let's see if there's anything else. Link visited, hover, active. And active is kind of cool. Let's see if there's anything different there. That's exactly the same. And this one, let's check this out. This is nice because it's a form. And so the form allows you to do things with active. So I have an attribute selector, and I'm adding to it hover pseudo class. So when I hover over type submit, it's going to change color. And when I do type submit active, right, so it's actually pressed down. So hover will become this green. And when I press down on it, it'll become that fuchsia. So check this one out. Ready? Here we go. And take a look. There's the form. And I hover over that submit button, turns green. I press it, it turns fuchsia. So that's the active state. And notice again, I'm putting this in love, laughter, LVHA, right? HA, hover, and then active. I put it in that order. So it has to be in that order. And I'm using attribute selectors for type submit. So let's split that vertically. And here we have type submit. So it's selecting the submit button. All right, so that's an introduction to pseudo classes. There's more to learn about pseudo classes, and we will check that out in the next videos.